Welcome to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. I'm your host, Shannon Ables, and whether you're listening on your commute, exercising, working in the garden, or sitting down with a hot cup of tea or a café au lait, thank you for tuning in. Let's get started. Welcome to the 154th episode of the Simple Sophisticate. Today, we're going to talk about ladybugs. Yes, you heard me correctly, ladybugs. I'll get into what I mean by that in just a second. This week's Petite plaisir is a sweet French treat that looks quite difficult to make, but is actually very, very simple. I'm excited to share it with you because when you take a bite of this treat, it does just crumble and melt in your mouth, and you will have fans from young to old, from those who love sweets to those who love savory only. It covers everyone. I'm excited to share with you the recipe at the end of today's episode, so be sure to stay tuned. But before I get into today's topic, I have a bit of a business note. On Monday's episode, June 26th, so in just under 2 months away, I'm going to be answering your questions. So many of you email me, leave in the comment section, or ask on Instagram questions. Could be about anything. It could be about books. It could be about life. It could be about fashion. Anything at all that we talk about here on the Simply Luxurious Life and the Simple Sophisticates podcast, you have a chance to get your question answered on this podcast on Monday, June 26th. All you have to do is email me at AskShannon, all one word, no space, at thesimplyluxuriouslife.com. So that's AskShannon, AskShannon, at thesimplyluxuriouslife.com. Email me your question. You can even record your question so your voice can appear. Your voice can be on the air here if you simply record it and send it to me, and we'll upload it as an MP3 file. So email me, record your question, whatever it might be. Send it in prior to the taping, which will be the Wednesday before the 26th, and your question could be answered on the podcast. I'll remind you again in a few more weeks, but maybe there's a question dancing around in your head that's been piqued by one of the blog posts or one of our episodes here, and why not get your question answered right here? So send me your questions. I'm excited to answer them. I also want to take a moment to send a thank you for a review that someone recently left on iTunes. As you know, the reviews make a big difference when someone stops by to see what this podcast is all about. And if you love what you are hearing, please leave a review on iTunes. This is from Junk Princess. I think I pronounced that correctly. It's Junque Princess. And she shares, I've been listening for about 6 months and absolutely love this podcast. Shannon has a real knack for diving into great topics that will impact and improve your life. Super advice and motivating content. I went to Paris last week. Paris in the spring. How lucky you. That's awesome. Something I've put off for too long. I study French now. I've grown with self-awareness. I'm more critical in cultivating my wardrobe. These are just a few ways she has truly improved my life. An overdue thank you, Shannon. And I want to thank you, Junk Princess, for taking the time to share this very kind review and rating. So if you too are enjoying what you're listening to, please leave a review on iTunes, and maybe your review will appear on an episode in the future. All right, but now let's get to today's topic. What is it about ladybugs? What am I talking about? Well, let me give you the subtitle and it'll hopefully make more sense. So the title is How to Build a Life for Ladybugs, Choosing Hope Over Fear. I want to begin with a quote from Nelson Mandela. May your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears. Amelia Earhart, at the age of 23, had a dream awoken within her that she could not explain at that point in time in her life. Filled with both fear and pleasure, she stated she knew she had to fly. Julia Child was determined to change the dining, cooking, and eating experience of Americans, also known as the servantless cooks. At the time, no one had written nor demonstrated how to successfully engage with real food, delicious, satiating cuisine, as she had. And as I know, many of you already know this because you're Francophiles, but her perseverance pays off, as we all know. And so it was hope, not fear, that Julia Child, as well as Amelia Earhart, pursued their vision with dogged perseverance. It was the nebulous vision held within, unknowingly willing their dreams to materialize. How and when, they could not know at the time. I am reminded of Nelson Mandela's quote. Often with the many different new experiences and people I have had the opportunity to encounter in my now nearly 2 years living in Bend, Oregon, a multitude of unknowns dance about untamed in my life that have tested my confidence, my faith, and my desire. From the desire to become once again a homeowner, to producing a second book of quality and inspiration for devoted longtime and newly introduced readers of Living Simply Luxuriously, to finding and cultivating real love and friendships based on trust, curiosity, and similar passions shared authentically, just to name a few. And it is at times of doubt and unknown situations that self-preservation can be the default my mind wants to revert to. After all, it's a rare individual to travel unscathed by pain, loss, hurt, and disappointment through life. And therefore, it is only natural to allow the mind, when it recognizes seemingly similar behavior equivalent to a pain-inflicting person from our past, to put up its defenses, assume the worst, and no longer step forward. But such behavior is to ignore Mandela's directive. Such behavior is to make a choice that reflects our fears. And when we continue to make decisions that reflect our fears, we are no longer building a life in which we can thrive, striving toward our fullest potential. No, instead, we are merely surviving and watching pass by beautiful opportunity after beautiful opportunity of the life we have not yet experienced, but could if only we would make choices that reflect our hopes. Last week, I began to make firm plans for a summer holiday in 2018. Money has been invested, dates have been confirmed, rentals have been secured. While I am not sure how all of the details will come together or even exactly how long I will be away, I at least know a dream I set way back in 2011 will be taking place finally. I chose to build a life based on hope. I chose to believe that the pieces would gradually fall together if I set out the invitation enabling them to materialize. I chose what I was excited about rather than what I am fearful of. To have hope may not seem to be enough, and I would argue, while it isn't entirely everything, it is a significant part of the foundation of the beautiful life we wish to build for ourselves and those we love. Think of it as building a sanctuary in the country, complete with koi ponds, long, tree-lined lanes, and thoughtfully planted perennials that awake in their designated seasons in order for a full year of natural beauty. Such a creation, while yes, taking time, also requires of the dreamer to plan, design, and educate themselves, but then act in a manner that involves decisions that open the door to the possibility of ample and abundant beauty. Conversely, a life built on our fears resembles a fortress of stone, iron walls, gates, anything to protect the individual or individuals inside from being penetrated by the unknown. No engagement with the outside world unless deemed fit and suitable. No plan except to build higher walls that are no more natural and healthy, let alone beautiful, when it comes to a well-lived life, than forced solitary confinement. Here's a quote from Amelia Earhart about worry. Worry retards reaction and makes clear-cut decisions impossible. Yes, the former example leaves us open, that beautiful place in the countryside with the long tree-lined lanes. It leaves us open, it leaves us more vulnerable, but it also invites the natural world to thrive. the seasons to work their magic, relationships to grow and mature, life to move through its cycles, and for the residents to appreciate each step. Whereas the fortress controls or attempts to control everything, or creates a way of living that presents a facade of having everything under control, when in actuality the beauty that could flourish is killed due to lack of sunlight. In other words, hope is driven asunder. No, we will never know precisely when the economy, for example, will ebb and rise, or why it ebbs and rises prior to the event that sparks the change. We will never know when we might run into that person that captivates our attention more than anyone we have ever met before. We will never know when we will hear yes or when we will hear no. We will never know when our time will be up, or for those around us as well. We will never know anything except how we choose to respond to any situation. Having hope doesn't mean we are being foolhardy. Having hope doesn't mean we cannot do our homework. But when we are left with unknowns, choose the hopeful outcome rather than the fearful one. And your behavior and words as you interact and engage with the world will reflect this choice, and thus the energy that is reflected back to you. A funny and aha moment awareness that I had recently is that not all of my negative defaults have been a result of personal experience. Some of my negative self-protecting defaults have come from the media, from plots and tales that are told as entertainment, and some as cautionary tales. Now, most I have recognized were experienced unconsciously as a younger child and adult, and so the lesson for myself is to feed my life experience well. Not only with the entertainment, literary journeys, and news that I consume, but also with the people I spend time with. What conversations, what lives, what tales are shared. No, we must not sanitize our lives. We must know what is going on in the world, and we must be aware of suffering to an extent so that if nothing more, we can be a part of the effort to alleviate it. We must be conscious citizens, in other words. But then we need to get in our own lane. A lane that is based on self-awareness, clarity of direction, and a mind that is constantly being fed and nourished, and live our lives well. But how do we do that, you may be asking, especially when at times it will feel as though living in fear is far smarter? Here's the answer. First, vent or express your frustration in a healthy manner. How do you do that? Understand that you are not seeking the solution, but rather simply a means to express and release the frustration. You maybe run up against a wall, life isn't turning out in a particular arena the way you want it to or as fast as you want it to, or something happened that was completely surprising and not the way you'd hoped. So you just need to release that frustration. You do, but do so in a healthy manner. Do so in a way that you're not seeking the solution because you can't control it. It's over. It's happened. Now you just have to move forward. But then don't dwell. Move forward. You are human to feel frustration, even anger. But in recognizing that we cannot control everything, we recognize what we can control, and that is how we respond in such moments. The second thing you need to do, and I believe it's the most powerful, is let go of the outcome. We can only control our behavior, our thoughts, and our preparation. Focus on these three things and let the others go so that you can enjoy the life you have cultivated for yourself, no matter what life may bring, toss, or surprise you with. And as we go about our lives having invested in hope rather than fear, we are more likely to awake unexpectedly to a ladybug on our shoulder. What do I mean by that? It is definitely an allusion to a favorite film of mine. Many of you have probably seen it. Maybe you've read the book, and the film obviously takes liberties with this particular scene, but the quote is from the film Under a Tuscan Sun, and the quote is said to Frances. When I was a little girl, I used to run around in the fields all day trying unsuccessfully to catch ladybugs. Finally, I would get tired and lay down for a nap. When I awoke, I'd find ladybugs walking all over me. Here is that scene from the movie.
Listen, when I was a little girl, I used to spend hours looking for ladybugs. Finally, I'd just give up and fall asleep in the grass. When I woke up, They were crawling all over me. So, go work on your house and forget about it. I said, go!
I'm going!
Fast forward to the end of the movie.
Scusa, io busco scrivere americani chi, tu say?
You are looking for the American writer who lives here, and you found her.
You don't mind. Just
He finds a ladybug on her arm.
it was crawling on you.
They say they built the train tracks over the Alps between Vienna and Venice before there was a train that could make the trip. They built it anyway. They knew one day the train would come. Any arbitrary turning along the way, and I would be elsewhere. I would be different. What are four walls, anyway? They are what they contain. The house protects the dreamer. Unthinkably good things can happen, even late in the game. It's such a surprise.
Now you want to go watch the movie, don't you? I know I do. I really do. I have it on my watch list on Netflix. I think I've got to find time to watch the movie for the upteenth time, of course. As I've shared in the episode a few months ago, if you haven't already read Frances May's book that inspired the film, there are a lot of differences, but I find the book to be even more beautiful, engaging, and inspiring. And that's saying a lot because that film is a treat to watch. All right, so we're letting go. We're letting the ladybugs come to us. We are choosing hope instead of fear when we make decisions. And I'll provide a bunch of links to posts from the archives that dive into letting go and how to really in detail do that and why, yes, it's hard, but it can be easier. And I'll also share a few other links about clarity of direction, self-awareness, and a few other things we talked about today. I want to leave you with one last quote from Amelia Earhart with regards to worrying and deciding what to do and whether or not to do it, something that you're excited about, something that you hope will happen. Here it is, very simple. Decide whether or not the goal is worth the risks involved. If it is, stop worrying. And that's really all it is about. What is it that you really want to materialize in your life? Stop assuming the worst. Stop getting in your own way. And step forward toward what you hope rather than what you fear. To find all the links we just talked about, to watch that clip again, to see all those quotes, visit the blog, the show notes, the simplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast 154. And now we have a Petite plaisir that is a sweet French treat. I'll be right back. All right, welcome back. This week's Petit plaisir is palmier. These are simple, buttery, sugary, sweet treats, but they can also be savory, decadent treats as well. Now, they involve a process of pastry that seems initially daunting, but it's actually very simple. It's very simple, and it's the quick puff pastry. Now, you can buy your quick puff pastry at the store, but I honestly highly recommend that you make your own and then to stick it in the freezer and use it whenever you need to use it. And I provide the recipe to the quick puff pastry. But what is a palmier? And it's spelt, and I know my French isn't the most perfect, it's spelled Palmier, palmier, and it means palm, because they do resemble palm fronds. They also resemble elephant ears or butterfly wings, and they also look like a heart. So, a lot of beautiful things. Whatever you want to call them, it's up to you. But the best ones I've had are the ones that are homemade, fresh from the baker's kitchen. And like I said, you can have sweet or savory. The sweet ones, all they really involve, once you have your quick puff pastry, are sugar. And the savory ones, I've done this once for a catering job that I had at a golf course, and you can either put Dijon in it, so some beautiful male Dijon mustard, and you can also put Comté, so that that French cheese that's been aged for 3 years. If you're in France, you can't usually find them that old in the United States. It's a creamy, but not soft, nutty cheese. And if it is aged for 3 years or approximately therein, it can be, and this is just before you obviously bake it, it has little crystals in it, and it just has that extra little crunch too. Oh my gosh, it's delicious. But anyway, you can have the savory, you can have the sugar, but what is the most delicious part about it are all the layers of butter and sugar, and it's just multi-layered loveliness. And as you'll see in the pictures, if it's a sweet palmier, have it with a cup of tea. If it's a savory, have it with a glass of crisp Chardonnay. That nuttiness, that oakiness just blend beautifully together. Again, the recipe is going to look daunting because there's many steps, but all the steps are really rolling and refrigerating. And we can all do that. That's easy. And then you bake it for 9 minutes on one side, 7 to 8 on the other, and that's it. So set aside about 2 hours for the entire process if you're going to do it all in one day. But if you're not, it only takes about an hour and a half to get the quick puff pastry made. Stick that in the fridge. And then all you have to do is take it out, put the sugar or put the savory ingredients in, chill it for 30 minutes, slice it up, stick it in the oven for those 9 and then 7 minutes, and voila, you are tasting this beautiful, simple French treat that looks like you've slaved away in the kitchen, and maybe time-wise you have, but not with regards to difficulty. It's so simple. And here's the other thing I'm very excited about, and I shared with my newsletter subscribers, the weekly newsletter subscribers, that I finally have a new recipe layout on the blog, and you'll see it with the palmier recipe. It's easier to follow. It's streamlined. It prints very nicely. And if you want, you can rate the recipe once you've tried it and give feedback to future cooks who want to use it in the kitchen, or bakers in this case. Oh, and the main reason I chose this layout is that because I have readers from around the world, so you can change the measurements from metric to imperial based on what you are most familiar with. It's fantastic. It's very simple. So I'll provide the recipe on today's show notes, the simplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast 154 palmiers. They're going to be your new favorite sweet treat. I have a feeling. I think you're going to love them, and it might be a perfect recipe for your Mother's Day tea if that's what you're having. I hope you've enjoyed this week's Petite Plaisir, where each week ideas are shared to make the everyday all the more enjoyable. Tune in at the end of each Monday's podcast, where I'll recommend a book, a film, or a recipe, anything that is a simple pleasure to satiate your sophisticated taste. Thank you for tuning in to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. For more ideas and inspiration throughout the week, stop by the blog, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com, or pick up the book, Choosing the Simply Luxurious Life, A Modern Woman's Guide. To stay caught up on the most recent podcasts, blog posts, and receive exclusive news as well as an extra dose of inspiration, subscribe to the Simply Luxurious Life's weekly newsletter, which arrives in your inbox each Friday to enjoy with a hot cup of tea or your morning coffee, just in time to jumpstart the weekend. Until next Monday, I'm your host, Shannon Ables. Bonne journée!